Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. Happy New Year.
All right. Happy New Year.
I know it's still happening. It's set up.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year. Good to see you, Liza.
Good to see you too.
All right. Okay, what am I looking for? Here we go.
Hey, Sharon. Welcome. Good to see
Good
you.
morning, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Ready for 23.
I'm not sure I'm ready to go that far.
I know. I'm just going to say it until it makes sense.
Yeah,
Probably be close to 24 when it makes sense, but that's okay.
and it'll be here before we know it.
Mm-hmm. Very true. But Tyler's setting up the room, so it's just taking a little time to get that going. But we're right on time. Should just be a minute. Hello, Robin.
Hi, everyone. Sorry it's so dark in my office.
That's okay. It's really bright in mine.
I don't know.
It doesn't look too bad. You're okay. We can see you. We know it's you.
Okay. The voice from the shadows.
Hey, Sarah. Welcome.
Good morning. Happy
Good to
New
see
Year.
Happy New Year. Hi, Casey. When you get on, I'll see you soon. Just getting the physical room set up. It'll just be a minute. All right. I just sent IT over there to check them out. So somebody will be on it. me get the slideshow going just so he doesn't have to worry about that part. Proactively starting the meeting without them. It's all right. Got a couple more people coming in.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Hey, I'm in Aubrey Butte
Available are, yeah.
with the rest of the group, but we're just trying to get the room
Okay.
connected right now. So
Great. Thanks,
Yeah,
Cassie. Sounds good. I have the
you can
meeting
hear.
presentation
Here, I
up.
think, through my
Hobie, can you hear all of us?
Yeah, we can. We can't see you very well. You have a background that makes it kind of ghost like.
It's hooked to my computer right now. Like,
Yeah.
Can you resend me the link? Hobie, because I think the link
Yeah.
on the. I've got the host.
You're a
link.
host.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it won't let
that's
me
why.
in.
I'm sorry. I figured there was something going on.
Camera.
That's why I sent a tech over. Thank you, Brandon.
Brandon. Oh, the virtual world. Oh, okay. So my background.
All right, you should get an invitation, Tyler.
Loading.
It's actually from Money
Oh, look at that.
Hey.
Hello, everyone. It's been a party in there. All right. Okay. So, Tyler, I have the presentation up. If you'd like, I could continue sharing it or stop sharing. You guys, oh. So we'll need to unmute Cassie maybe.
Okay.
Yes, and then that will be our speaker for now. Does that sound okay? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
And then Tyler, I do have the presentation up on the screen. Hopefully you guys can all see that. Or if you'd like to share the screen, you can. That's up to you.
We can see it.
Yes.
You can see your.
Give me one copy of the slides. I've got a few. If anyone wants to read them.
Thank you.
All right, can you just go to the, I think so I'll start. This is back up. I'm Tyler Deakey with the Bend MPO, and we are having what I would call a special meeting today. We're always focused on, going to be talking about the federal reduction program funding that's going to be available to the Bend area. And so what we're doing is, this is a meeting, we've called together our technical advisory committee and invited quite a few other folks in on this discussion. So Hobie, will you go to the next slide, please?
Yeah. There we go. Okay, had to get that recording going. Okay, so we got a lot of people on this list, and I can start if you want.
Yeah, why don't you, I guess, do you want to introduce everybody who's online or who's, virtual?
Yes, I will. So we have Liza Hamada, Sarah Hudson, Cameron Prow, Casey Berg, Robin Vora, Sharon Smith, Robin Lewis, and then we also have Karen Swirsky remote, but she's not panelist, so she's in there. She's listening in.
All right, and then room here, I'll start from.
Sure. Hi, I'm Barb Campbell. I serve on the Bend City Council and on the MPO.
And I'm Tyler Deakey, MPO manager.
I'm Greg Bryant, Deschutes with resident.
Eric Lint, new strategy program manager at Cascades East Transit.
Peter Russell, Deschutes County Senior Transportation Planner.
Joel McCarroll, DKS and Associates.
Kim Curley, commute options.
Fran Athley, Bend MPO Senior Planner.
I see Lacey, I'm in the city manager's office.
Toby Mark, City on Bend. All right, thank you. Next slide, Hobie.
Okay, so as a virtual hybrid meeting, just sharing the protocol as the group that is meeting in person. Please state your name when you speak so we can follow along as to who's talking here in the virtual world. raise your hand virtually or in person. We'll make this all happen. The meeting's recorded and also on the YouTube City of Bend channel. So you can watch it again if you need to.
Cameron has her hand up.
Go ahead, Cameron.
Cameron does because I don't see a little record button on my screen. So could you make sure you turn that part on?
Yeah, I will double check. I think I just did it, but it says,
I'd rather find
We are
out now
recording.
than later.
Mine says recording.
I think we're recording. We're good.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. All right, we'll go to the next one.
All right, so yeah, we'll just jump in. So I said the focus today is going to be talking about the new carbon reduction program. You go to the next slide, Jose.
Yep.
So just I have a background slide, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the eligible projects, the ODOT process for administering these funds, and then we'll kind of jump into a discussion on, potentially, hopefully having a strategy for the Bend area. So this program, it's a new program that was created under the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act, or IIJA. It's funding for transportation projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. These will be federal funds. We won't have the option of exchanging these funds like we do our STBG funds. These will remain federal, and they'll require a local match of a little over 10%. For the funding breakdown of the funds that are coming to Oregon, about 1/3 will go to ODOT or projects for them to use on their system. 1/3 will go to the 3 large MPOs. And the other 1/3 will be divided up among the small MPOs as well as non-MPO cities and counties. And within that 1/3, that's going to go to the small MPOs and non-MPO cities and counties. We are set to receive about $1.2 million total over the 5 years of this legislation. And these funds will be available to all anybody who can receive federal funding within the Bend MPO area. So most everybody at the table here, as well as Oregon State Parks, U.S. Forest Service, others could potentially seek these funds when they become available. Eligible projects, I think you all saw this in your packet, hopefully. There's a group of technology eligible projects, which that's really focused on traffic signal type infrastructure. So new traffic signal connectivity. So ITS, intelligent transportation systems type projects. Public transit projects are eligible. Bike and ped projects are eligible. Street lighting and energy efficient traffic control devices, transportation demand management, a range of alternative fuel projects, which can involve charging stations as well as zero emission vehicles, and then diesel retrofits. Any questions so far?
Okay, I've just got a quick question. Can these be attached to other projects? They cannot be. So can they be?
It could be.
They could be, okay.
I think because these are federal funds, what you would probably need to do if they were to be attached to another project, you have to see another federally funded project. If it's a state or locally funded project, it would be extremely difficult to add these onto one of those types of projects because of federal funding, because of the environmental process and contracting processes that are required for federal funds. And I know that over in the larger MPOs, they're definitely going to be doing, they're adding this on to some existing projects that they already have programmed.
And these are not discretionary, these are formula funds that are coming.
Yes. Yeah. And so I just mentioned, 1.2 million. So whatever that, it's 240.
240.
Yeah, 240 per year. What we don't know, I'll talk about on this slide. We don't know yet if this is going to be a single application process or if they're going to do multiple processes, through ODOT.
Tyler, Sarah has her hand up as well.
Oh, hey, Sarah.
I just want to clarify, because these are FHWA funds and they're federal, does that mean you either have to be certified to deliver or ODOT needs to deliver the project?
Yes, correct. Okay. Yeah, so jump to the next slide, Obi.
You got it.
Yeah, so administration, these are federal funds, and then answering, Sarah's question, a federally certified agency will have to administer and deliver, these funds. And so I think our assumption, at least in our area, is that if we have funds, if we have multiple projects, any of the early awards will have to be delivered by ODOT. And this program is currently being run by the climate office out of ODOT's climate office in Salem. They're just starting the process of talking to each of their regional offices and trying to understand the whole delivery, what the delivery process is going to look like and what their capacity is within each of ODOT's regions to be able to deliver, this new funding through this program. I think locally here, if the city of Bend receives funding, the city of Bend is starting into that process, becoming a federally certified agency. So if there's a project awarded to the city in the later years, the IIJ funding cycle, the city can potentially administer and deliver projects with these funds. The application process for this is a little bit different than the surface transportation block grant funds that come through the MPO. This process, instead of being run by the MPO, ODOT's going to administer this whole process. They are right now planning on opening up their application process in early February, and that process would be open from February through April, I believe. I mentioned that we don't know yet if they're going to have a single application process for the entire amount of funding, or if they're going to do, have an application process annually or every second year, every third year, that type of thing. We won't know that for another probably 2 or 3 weeks, probably. And the other issue is we don't know if there's going to be a project minimum. I suspect because these are federal funds that ODOT will set a minimum application request. And I put 100K on here, but in my discussions with ODOT, it's probably going to be higher than that because federal projects are pretty expensive to deliver. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a minimum of around 200,000, per application in terms of efficiency, being able to deliver these.
What do you mean by deliver? What does that entail?
That means if the city of Bend got a sidewalk project funded through this and the city's not certified, ODOT would run the entire project. It would not go through city engineering or it would be an ODOT project from beginning to end.
So it does include engineering.
Everything, yes.
Things delivered.
Engineering, construction
They're
management.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And they select like the contractors.
Sharon has a question. And then Robin.
Thanks.
Sharon?
Do we know if ODOT is going to deliver to run this program through the climate office, or is it going to be done regionally?
Well, there's kind of two parts to that. I think the application process, application process will go through the climate office.
Okay.
And then once project's been selected, I think our assumption at this point is that each ODOT region then will be tasked, their project delivery folks within each ODOT region will be tasked with actually delivering projects.
And so ODOT is taking applications for all of the money. Is that right?
They'll be taking applications for
Large and small MPOs?
No, the large MPOs get treated differently, and that they're direct recipients.
Got it. Okay.
Of federal funding, so they will run their own projects.
Okay.
And they can deliver their own projects. It's that 1/3 that goes to small MPOs and then to the rest of the state, small cities and rural counties. ODOT will be in charge of that entire chunk of them.
Got it. And their own third, they just decide for themselves,
We
or
haven't heard yet how they're gonna.
curious?
Yeah, what they're going to do with those funds. If that will be solely for projects in the ODOT system, or if they're going to open that up to, competitive, allow some that to go to cities and counties as well.
Thank you.
Robin Lewis, go ahead.
Does the outcome have to be a constructed facility, or could these funds be used in a programmatic way? Because it's not a lot to actually build something that is federal process, but could it create some overarching program within the city and we use it for admin and consultant to line out strategies and design projects?
My understanding is yes, we can use it for programs, and we can we just have to be able to document how it's gonna be used, depending if it's an on-the-ground program today, or if it's gonna be building towards longer-term, program within the area. As long as we can document how that'll be implemented over time and the carbon reduction benefits of it, and that there would be, if we're gonna do all the upfront work, use these funds for upfront work, for instance, and then the city would be running some sort of program in the future, as long as we have documentation saying, hey, the city's committed funding to run this program once it's set up, these would be the carbon benefits. I think that would be eligible under this program.
Kim Curley in the room with a question.
Yes.
So transportation demand management strategies are definitely not facilities,
Right.
and they're really cheap compared to building stuff.
Yes.
And we already have some technology that captures GHG reduction by participants in the Get There platform. So I'm wondering if this money could be used to further incentivize the use of that tool and getting community-based groups to start tracking trips that they're, yeah. So federal funds can be used for like rewards.
The rewards, that I don't know.
Okay.
That's
I had little gears.
Yeah, I would.
Right now.
I'd have to check on that.
Okay. And then I didn't see nonprofits listed in the application process.
No, I think it has to be an entity that can be
certified.
Well, they're all that's eligible for federal funding. And so it would be, if we were going to be using for demand management type or safe routes to schools, wherever it might be, I think the city or county, someone like that would have to apply for the funds, and then
Fair. Got it.
yeah.
Okay.
Kind of like we went through, that's what we did with some of the discretionary money that we receive annually. The city applied for it, and then the city will contract with
Other people. Great, thanks.
Any questions? Any more questions?
I don't see any online.
Just to clarify, Tyler, this is Joel. The application process is only to see if they're like, you've got the money. The application process is to see if it meets the eligibility criteria. It's not competitive, right?
Well, it's going to be, because it's being run by. Yeah, I mean, it's a great question.
Great question.
Yeah, it's
on the possible answer. I would draw it.
Yeah, I mean, you have 1.2 million, roughly. It's a little bit more than that, but we'll say 1.2 million. And there's going to be a competitive application process for it. And because it's being run by ODOT, anybody who's eligible could apply. And so what I think, and I'll jump into it in the next slide or two, is, I think our goal today, and if we need to meet again, is, do we have a set of projects or priorities that we want to apply for from the Bend area or not? I think with the goal of, trying to help hopefully minimize. Ideally, I don't want to see entities that are eligible within the Bend area. I don't want to see $3 million worth of applications, for 1.2 million. We're all competing against each other. I think I'd much rather see us have a cohesive, set of priorities that are close to that 1.2 million.
Because it's going to be ODOT that makes the decision on what projects to fund.
Yeah, and so ODOT will make the decision on which projects get funded.
Okay, so
we have the funding was available to us, but ODOT will decide which projects get funded.
Yeah, there was
It's very strange. I can tell you it's a very big point of contention during all the discussions we've been having with ODOT.
Editorial comments about my.
Greg Ryan again. I've got a question on the public charging. Right now the state's going to go through and do charging with the slow chargers. At least that's when they were here. That's what they've said. Now, could we include this so we get the faster chargers or something like that?
Possibly, yes.
Because, the way I look at it, I don't know, but the slow chargers take, 4 hours, whatever it is. And most people, if they're here for tourists, they want to do fast charging. So I think that would be a good benefit from a tourist standpoint and also for the customer, for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think any charging infrastructure is eligible for these funds, whether it's that kind of the medium or the high speed.
Yeah.
Kind of charge.
Yeah.
And we probably just want to do separate charging projects altogether than whatever the state is planning.
Yeah.
You need to be tying in with them on that one, I would think. ODOT, yeah.
Yeah, my understanding of like, I guess what ODOT program are you talking about where they're putting in the slow chargers? Because I've talked with them about they're gonna put in a network of fast chargers through the NEVI program and everything. But those are gonna be like every 50 miles or something along the corridor. So we don't have, they may or may not be locally, useful. And so the city of Bend has an EV readiness plan that we just recently developed that has kind of like community locations that we want to put chargers in as well. Kind of complementing those. Not familiar with like what slow chargers they're putting in those. I just don't know if I missed something.
When they were here, they made up as a presentation, they said that they were going to be, and I don't know how long period of time that was going to be, but they're going to be buying the slow chargers. I'm thinking to myself, people don't want fast chargers versus the slow chargers, but whatever.
Oh, I think you're right. I think the public ones need to be fast.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
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 Toby Mark, City of Bend.
Yes.
So just to jump in on that, because I had a conversation with a contractor this morning actually about that. There's a lot of money being put into expansion of EV charging networks right now. There's like the industry, like the electrical industry is thinking this is going to be very much like solar. There's a lot of federal funds poured in. Everybody jumps on it for the next 5 years, and then it's there. The reality is a little bit that we're doing a project on the South Maripont lot, which will have fast chargers. But even the fast chargers will run off a charge management platform.
Yeah.
That the power can be handled, right? And I think the reality is that a lot of gas stations are now jumping on that too, to add like fast chargers to in stations so that this density of network is there. And the second reality is that there has been a lot of effort on workplace charging, but I think it seems that people now start to understand. I'm saying it's very careful. I don't want to have my German grumpiness come through you right now. But I think that a little bit of the reality is setting it that workplace charging doesn't need to have fast chargers. They don't even need level 2 chargers. They need power management because they need 10, 20 plugs, but not all plugs need to be having 50 kilowatt hours going through or kilowatt going through it, right? So I think there's a lot of that happening right now. So I think there's just reading through this, I think it would be really great to spend time to look at like where do we want to go with this in the long run. It shouldn't be a pet project. What we are applying for shouldn't be pet projects. It should really make sense in the context of our climate action plan, CET's master plan, because of transit projects, and also the city's TSP. Because there's probably great stuff we can do. Some of the stuff we already do, and I think the timing is great because like I think people haven't talked more than we're doing right now. And I think I agree with what Tyler says. It's $1.2 million potentially over 5 years. That's $240,000 a year. If there's a $100,000 or $200,000 project minimum, it's like one project.
Right.
And that project, if it has to go through ODOT, is not moving mountains, just of the administrative work behind it, if we can really figure out what makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Not to like crush anybody's bubble, just like, I mean, that's the reality of it, right?
No, I mean, it's great we have the funding coming in, but in the bigger scheme of things, 1.2 million of federal funds is not going to go very far, and
Right,
being
over
able to
5
deliver
years?
projects,
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So I think, can you jump to back up a slide, Obi?
You got it.
Yeah, and so as I mentioned, this application process is going to be open to all eligible entities. And so you can see that, I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of different agencies, or taxing districts locally that could potentially apply for these funds. And I think something we've talked with our board is, given the limited amount of funding that we have available, we want to avoid or minimize, competition amongst each other if we can. And try and come to consensus on some priority projects, types of projects for the Bend area for these funds. Next slide, Jove.
Have we got someone from each of these agencies, these entities?
Yeah.
Don't we?
I mean, we have everybody that's on there except State Parks and Forest Service are on the MPO advisory committee.
Okay.
I sent an email to State Parks.
Okay.
About the program. I just need to follow up with the Forest Service. see if they're interested. We've notified state farms asked about our other discretionary funding. Typically have not shown any. They've never really engaged us, or sought it had interest in programs.
Same with Forest Service. I always reached out to them about our STV process, but they haven't responded.
Okay, thank you.
So this slide, this was just, me thinking about the city's climate action plan, city TSP, some ODOT plans, and so on, and trying to think about types of projects that we could potentially, that could be lined up for us here locally. Under technology, there are definitely some things that we could do related to traffic signal upgrades. The other thing that's interesting, when I was rereading the eligibility, electronic wayfinding is an eligible use of those funds.
It is.
It is.
Because it helps people get where they're going more efficiently, so they burn fewer greenhouse emissions.
Yeah, and I think when it says electronic, it's loosely, there's no definition for what that is. And so in my mind, that could be much more like an app-based kind of wayfinding, on your phone. It's not like having big visible signs. It could be a wayfinding app you would have on your phone. It would help.
A wayfinding. Sorry.
Early calling, Get There already does that also, which is funded by ODOT. So expansion of the tool we already have would be amazing.
But I think in ODOT, I don't know if it's this, I think it's this calendar year at some point, they are proposing to develop a wayfinding plan for, I think, starting in the Bend area, and then it'll grow over time. And so I added that in there because that's something that we're going to be working on a plan for at some point in the next, hopefully 12 months.
This is Barb. We've been talking about the need for wayfinding for bike facilities, for being able to get around key routes and neighborhood greenways. It seems like, just to me, that the private market is doing a great job with these wayfinding apps when it comes to automobiles. So that's just my comment.
Toby, City of Bend. So we are in the process of installing a parking governance system for downtown Bend.
Oh, yeah.
2023, which is sensor-based and will give 100%, 24/7 real-time parking availability. These programs are proven in any case study that they've done that they can reduce search traffic from parking up to 30 and 40%, in that having positive impact. We've connected with Lee Rendell and the county folks and Bend Parks and Rec on that too, as part of like a larger citywide parking manual for the future to discuss expansion. So the way that works is, and there's a biking point in there. That's why I'm coming to that. There's sensors that measure parking availability. There's digital LED-based signs in downtown and on entry points that will show where parking is available. And there's an app, and that app will actually show where parking is available in real time, which other entities, if they install similar systems, can plug in. So that the goal with that is that eventually there's one app that would show not only city parking assets, but also Bend Parks and Rec and others that want to join into that. It's like early, but we're installing the core in March, April. We can get it through 2023. There is a component for biking that is really, really interesting. So there are companies that now use like cameras or sensors to monitor bike parking that could feed into a similar app and then could help connect that. So that when you're leaving from a location with your bike, you know where you can actually find bike parking. And as we are thinking about building mobility hubs and building more neighborhood mobility points, that would be an interesting project to consider. So that can all come into one, that it makes that the goal behind that would be probably to say biking is easier, right? You don't have to worry of where you're going, how you get there, and where you store your bike. Just to like follow up on what you said.
Yeah, great.
Did you?
No.
Okay.
Although I was wondering the Get There wayfinding.
Yeah.
Is that for like biking wayfinding? Like, I'm assuming it's
For
not.
any mode.
Okay.
So you put in your favorite trip and then it tells you what carpool options you have, what transit is available, what bike route it would recommend, walking, you can get a bike buddy. So you can contact me if you need to be able to find that. in the app?
Eric at CET, just on the train of real-time data, we launched our AVL system last month. That's automatic vehicle locators. So we now have real-time information about our buses.
Wow, that's
To get real-time signage out at all these mobility hubs and
yeah,
stops.
got it.
That's on the roadmap though.
And so I'm not going to walk through all of these, but there's, public transit, thinking about the recently completed public CET's master plan, there's mobility hub improvements are needed. There's a real interest in, at least from our board, in stop improvements at stops, getting shelters in. And not only shelters at the stops, but access to stops, in terms of getting the missing sidewalks or reconstructing sidewalks.
Crosswalks.
Ride Bend service, would be eligible, I think, under this. There's quite a bit on the bike and ped side, obviously, within the city's TSP. And then also the city of Bend right now is working on a pedestrian implementation plan. And that's, I believe, a 5-year, kind of a short-term priority list of projects that'll be hopefully popping up, in the next few months. Transportation demand management strategies, and then alternative fuel projects. And I think looking through everything that these funds are eligible for, this seemed like kind of our universe of potential projects. So there's other things that I think that these funds can be used for, but this was what I thought was probably the most likely set of, types of projects that would be eligible or that we want to potentially seek funding for. And so at this point, I just wanted to kind of, I guess, have the group start talking about, potential priorities and see if there's a process or a way that we can move forward on identifying, is this a universe of eligible projects that we potentially want to apply for? Is there anything on here that we want to eliminate? And then, hopefully narrow our list of priorities so that once that application process opens, we have a little bit clearer picture on what we want to apply for.
Hey, Tyler, did you say that it's scheduled to open in February and close in April or close in March?
April. Yeah, and so there's a lot of unknowns, obviously, still, as I've mentioned, but the application process is still scheduled to open in about 3 weeks. And so, I think it's just, we want to make sure that if we can come to, consensus on things, I would like to hopefully.
Well, they maybe postpone that. Like if they haven't even decided if they're doing one or multiple rounds, is it possible to postpone it at least a month or two?
I'm hoping that they'll do that because I think there's just we have a lot of, they've had I've been engaged in a work group that's been helping kind of shape this process. And we continue to raise, we have a lot of questions and a lot of those things haven't been answered yet. So.
Tyler,
Yeah.
Sharon has her hand up.
Go ahead, Sharon.
Thanks. I just wanted to kind of agree that I think it makes sense that we collectively come up with what we think are the higher priority projects and all, have some consensus on that so that we're not competing. And to my mind, we should be looking at projects that we think as a community are important to drive forward our climate reduction strategies, and also projects that may not have other funding. So as we start thinking about this as a group, identifying really important projects that we all agree on and ones that we don't have funding for. So that's my overarching perspective. I do have to leave at 11, but I think having us each try and do pet projects doesn't make sense.
Right. Thanks, Sharon.
Oh,
Janet has her hand up too.
Oh, hi. I was going to add, I think we've kind of hit on that with $1.2 million, it's going to be hard for anybody to do our own even pet projects or come up with a bigger joint like construction project. But if for carbon reduction, I think we've got a lot of things in the works that are on this list for infrastructure that have other funding sources. And to me, the piece that we can't find funding for or haven't been able to globally yet or jointly is how do we get word to the public and the people about what these options are in the community, and how do we track that, and how can we get them using things to make choices? Like our biggest benefit isn't necessarily building infrastructure, it's educating people and getting them to know, combine my trips to drive less, or I can take this shuttle bus. And I I think the city's working with actually the school district and parks on a mobility project and looking at buses. And so I would ask this group, is there something on that level with, and Kim Curley brought it, I think everybody's brought up some element of that with, we have some existing tools. How do we leverage that into a project to have a resource? We've got RIDIS now with ODOT that can tell you where traffic is. We've got the parking program coming up that's going to tell you where spaces are. So how do we link all that in one go-to spot? So just a thought.
Great. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I definitely support everything that's been said. Sharon and Janet, I agree with the points. I think one thing I just want to flag is that because of that federal match, that 10%, we might need to identify things that at least have some funding for that match in case budget runs over. I don't think that's too huge of a barrier, but just kind of wanted to flag that piece.
Oh. Yeah, just one thing I don't have a slide for it, but in the calendar invitation I sent out to each of you, I'd included an attachment that showed the draft scoring criteria. And the criteria, it's going to be 100 points, up to 100 points, on the scoring. 60 points will be for climate benefits. And so you have to be able to directly document how, the project will reduce climate emissions or GHG emissions. Then there'll be 10 points for local support and engagement, 10 points for equity, 10 points for innovation, and then 10 points for project readiness.
So you thought about using it for projects you already have that have a funding shortfall, because they would check all those boxes rather than trying to create a new one.
That is a federalized project.
Yeah, it'd have to be a federalized project. I mean, in the sense that it'd be really, really difficult to add these federal funds onto a local or state funded project, because you'd have to step back and go through a lot of process to make.
Have any federalized that would fit, or like you just,
What's that?
so none of your projects are federalized or would fit that?
No, not right now.
Okay.
There's some that are coming up in the future that we will have eventually, but nothing not in the short term.
Nothing between March and April.
Is the money being doled out over the 5 years? Or, can it be $1.2 million in the first year and then that's it?
That's another question that we've raised with ODOT is because I think, we're getting 1.2 million, and then the other, say this, Corvallis and Albany MPOs, they're only getting like 600,000-700,000, and so we raise that issue. It's like, hey, could we stack our projects such that, say we front loaded and we get all of ours in the first year.
Right, or all at the end, yeah.
All at the end, something like that. That's to be determined.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? It's Kim about the match.
Yeah.
So I don't know this. What can you use for the 10.27?
For this, I'm assuming it's gonna have to be cash. I mean, it's gonna have to be actual, money, not.
And it would have to be
Anybody have
local funding or state funding, not federal, not another federal grant.
Yeah, it can't be in kind.
So it could be statewide transportation improvement fund.
Oh, absolutely.
State money.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
just checking.
Yep.
And then
Robin? Laura?
Hey, just a follow-up question on that comment on federalized projects. I guess I don't understand that, but can that simple, just fixing sidewalks qualify? I mean, because you already have lots of plans with priorities outlined that might meet many of those evaluation criteria.
Yes, definitely. I mean, if it's just a standalone, a new sidewalk, if say the city's pedestrian implementation plan, we could, a set of priorities pop up out of that process. These funds could be used to implement, design and construct, a series of sidewalk improvements.
This is Joel. I mean, you'll just be spending a lot more as a percentage of the overall project on engineering and documentation. So for a small project, you're going to spend a lot relative to the amount you're going to get just on delivering the project. Yeah. That's the issue with federalization. You'd probably spend something on the order of double what you would to do, if it was just city money that you were spending.
Cassie?
What does, because we've talked about good project potentials are more the programmatic stuff as opposed to capital projects, just
Yeah.
it's a small dollar amount. So what does ODOT delivery look like for programmatic? Does that part go away? If it's like a low, like what Janet said, say we were going to build some tool that, is a kind of an educational and outreach tool, like does ODOT have to then be the one to hire someone to build that for us? Or, and I can think of if it's a program, like it would only make sense to do in-house. So do you know what that looks like as far as delivery?
My assumption is that it would still have to be ODOT. It at least would be an ODOT contracting process. They may have some flexibility then to allow.
Like a project manager?
Yeah, kind of like a joint project management kind of process, so that they wouldn't have to be running it per se. But it would still go through an ODOT procurement process.
Okay.
That type of thing.
Because I think that's just something to keep in mind when we're thinking about like programs, because if we just have only partial control in how those programs are actually created, it just, some may be better fits than others.
Yeah, and I mean, just kind of thinking out loud here, I think the program kind of stuff, that might be, I'm glad you raised that, because I think ODOT will be much less skillful at being able to manage.
Well, it's totally different than anything that they do now,
It's not
really.
on the ground.
Yeah.
Building something, so that'll present its own set of challenges. I mean, they'll have to do it because there are definitely going to be some programmatic things popping up through this, around the state, but it'll be a challenge for them.
Well, there's probably going to be like, if you're trying to incentivize, there's probably all kinds of weird federal rules around what you can spend your money on in terms of incentives.
Yeah.
And, things like if you were to buy an electric bus, if you decided that was your deal, that would be subject to like Buy America.
Right.
And so, you could settle on, so you can, the rules may determine what you can actually do in the marketplace for, what you can acquire.
Tyler, do you know the delivery rules? Like, projects would be awarded annually and they need to be completed within that calendar year, or?
I don't think we're going to have I don't think we will have hard deadlines like that. I mean, I think the way these funds are set up, and we'll get through that application process, select our projects, and then we will probably IIJA goes out through 2025.
3 years from when it got voted. I think that's right.
Whenever the bill ends, there's still another year or two within which those funds can be spent. And so, we will have time to expend these funds, out through probably 2026, 2027, something like that.
And Kim, again, reporting on reduction, like they haven't figured that out, the schedule of that either, right?
No, and it's going to be at least the way the draft. You just pull up the draft.
Reporting on GHG reduction, like when you're funding this micromobility project in 2025. Yeah. When do you have to tell them what the GHG reduction of that project is?
Oh, the actual, we're not going to have to we don't actually have to do that. It's just the application process. You just have to have it's going to really be.
You have to have an estimate.
Yeah, and it's going to be more qualitative than quantitative.
Oh.
Because we don't have good tools to estimate, GHG reduction.
It's not usually possible, like after the fact, to verify like this is how much reduction was.
So it's going to be much that section, that 60 points, it's going to be really, really critical to have a good narrative.
Right.
Yeah, that's your creative writing portion.
Yes.
The reason I ask is because if you look on your Get There dashboard, it tells you how many CO2 grams you have reduced with the trips that you blocked. And it accumulates every day that you add another trip. So there are ways to do it.
for certain projects, but some there wouldn't be. Like if we were doing wayfinding, there's no way to collect data on like who's seeing the wayfinding in the community. Well, right, so I'm saying like for specific platforms, but
Right.
that would limit the projects. You have to be able to have that type of data. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's ways of doing that, but it takes a lot of work
Yes.
to get everybody on board. And I mean, if you look at, Casey and I looked at that a lot with some recent project that we're working on. The Los Angeles Department of Transportation did like a really great, report or whatever. They came up with these transportation happiness and social benefit factor calculators to calculate exactly that people really don't pay attention to yet. Like if somebody takes the bike, there is like an economic benefit, there is a GHG reduction, and it's real, right? And so I think the more I hear everybody talking, I think for me personally, I feel this is a really great opportunity to do something that is not necessarily a one-off project every year, but it's really helping us set ourselves in motion into a direction to almost put a stake into ground to get us all moving into a direction that benefits our climate, but also improves transportation in a way that we couldn't do until now. I'm not sure how it looks like. I don't think we need to know right now what that looks like, but it's like our mind going in the direction I think can be beneficial, because I think we all want to do a lot of things. But I mean, when we talked about Right Bend last year, it's like, yeah, let's do that. And we have 100 grand here and 100 grand here. And then you're like, so we need 2 million for And I think that through these conversations, a lot of the stuff that was said right now came up. What if Right Bend becomes that integrated mobility system in Bend that eventually everything comes in? What if it's not just about on-demand shuttles and all those things, but also about trip planning and integrated payment in the future? And I think we just need to look at it a little bit more in the larger context of what are the new rules that are coming out of our way too. We're working on CFAC right now. We have DEQ new rules that have TMD demand management requirements for certain size employees. We have the same in the TSP. So there's all these things. And I think for me, I think it's important, not so much what the actual project will be, but for me, it's really like, and I think I want to underline what Sharon said, it's the same thing. What we're doing now needs to be something that will benefit us in 5 years too. And I think this might actually help us with that. I know this was a lot of fluff and like nothing concrete, but I think that's important to maybe spend some time in the innovative ideation space to be willing to think about what's coming, right?
A lot of it's the education of the public on this stuff.
It's that public facing.
Yeah. Well, they need to want to use it.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
That's it.
You gotta use it.
If it's not convenient, it's not good, why would I use it?
Right.
The alternatives need to be cheaper, easier, or more fun than driving.
Yeah.
And believe me, that's real difficult around here where parking is free and gas is still cheap and driving is easy.
Yeah.
Don't tell me gas is cheap and I have to fill up my car.
I know when you drive.
I think to add to that, like, but things are changing and people are moving here and people are living here that are starting to make different choices. And it seems like the best leverage for carbon reduction is to get people making different choices, not as much infrastructure with the money we have. And I just want to kind of shout out to everybody, because we also, playing off what Toby said, I think have a little bit of a unique position compared to a lot of cities. And then look at all the agencies who are participating in this, right? And we're all working together, overlapping projects already. So imagine if we could create one platform that everybody's using. Like the school district can't serve everybody with a bus, but they know this is where the CET bus is, and they go to the one spot as a parent, and then they see how they can ride somewhere. So I think I'd advocate again for some kind of platform that we could use. It's one project with the funding, and maybe there's some spin-offs filling some gaps, but and we don't have to decide today. You've heard ideas for using existing things, developing something new. There's a lot of things out there that do parts of that. But if that's something that everybody's interested in, feels like their agencies could get value to connecting, ODOT, I think in Salem is doing some versions of this, right? They're looking at some programs of how to use RIDIS better and how to do wayfinding, how to do cameras. So maybe they haven't done a project yet, but they're heading internally with staff in some of that direction. And then I'll just add for Barb and some other folks, when we do the ODOT federally managed projects, we still have an agency project manager that does a lot and helps a lot with that and are very active in that role. So it's not, sometimes we do just turn it over to ODOT if it's a certain, streamlined project, but most of them have so many complex things and need a lot of interaction with the city. So we are still fairly involved with that.
Yeah, and one more thing on what you said, Kim, I think I agree with everything you said, except
But
I don't necessarily think that all new services need to be cheap. I think they need to be good, convenient, and excellent. And I think then people are willing to use them and pay for them. And I think that actually opens an entire new perspective on the equity in transportation too. Because if you actually have 1,000 more people that are using a transit service and are willing to pay for it, you actually are able to provide that same service to people that need it at a much lower cost. And I think we have new tools, and I mean, we have the parking conversation, right? Like that most likely will come up very soon. There's potential new revenue sources that can support some of those projects too, if that is a desire of them, right? So.
thank you.
Yeah.
As far as process, like, did you have anything in mind, Tyler? Just like, would it make sense for us to just start, like, because we've heard various ideas so far. Should we start like listing them out? Because I think it'd be helpful for me to like list out the ideas, list out if there's other potential funding sources for them or not, and then maybe like synergy projects or other notes about like
Definitely.
how this fits in with something.
I think,
larger.
Hobie, if you back up a slide. I think there may be, I said this, I'm hoping I kind of narrowed things a little bit based upon our existing, the plans we have. This doesn't capture all. But I think, my goal today would be, are there things on here for sure that we simply want to eliminate, and then are there anything missing? It sounds like, this idea of, it's not a transportation wallet, but it's something bigger than that, but it's like, a software, it's a tool of some sort, which encompasses quite a few things that are on here. That sounds like that's something this group is interested in. It's like, and so that's one thing. And then are there other, and I guess how much would that cost? Is that a $500,000 project to develop something like that, that's unique to our area? And if it's, say, if it is a $500,000, is there another priority or a couple of priorities that we want to use for the balance of the funding, within the area? So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, I think this is a really good directive. I think creating, maybe if you guys could create like a matrix of like how do we get to the priorities that we want?
Yeah.
I think it's important that it's not a priority if it's not in an existing plan somewhere. Meaning if it doesn't solve a problem or a solution or like a strategy, it doesn't address a strategy or objective in the TSP, no. If it doesn't touch climate action plan, I don't think we should touch it, because I think we have work to do to achieve them. There has been a lot of effort and great work been done by the community to build these plans that we need to honor them. And we're focusing a lot good work when it comes to TSP on infrastructure and capital projects, but there's a lot of programmatic and future projects in it that often get on the back burner for now. I'm not saying they are, but they can. So I think those are some touch points that I think we should definitely have in there. And I think if they check all those boxes, we'll find definitely something that we can do.
It might be worth to add to that too, like the potential for carbon reduction, right? Because some of the things are going to have more immediate impact than others would. And where have we demonstrated that happening already? Safe routes to school would be one example. If we had additional money, we're already showing that people aren't driving and their kids are walking and biking to school with this program. So could that be a piece of the solution? And what other programs do we have, EV charging or other things that are already showing little bits that we could add on with that other half?
Yeah, and sorry, I talk a lot right now. I didn't mean to, but Janet, while you were talking, I think it would be valuable to, I'm not sure where the Human Rights and Equity Commission is at, but I think it would be really valuable to reach out to them. I know that the application criteria were only 10%. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't, how do I say this? While we are shaping our priorities, I think it would be really important to get their feedback. So we know that we get the most bang out of the buck for anything we're doing there too. I think that would be very valuable.
Likewise, the accessibility groups.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. I guess one thing, we can work on that in terms of putting together maybe more of a matrix kind of style of potential projects. And one of the issues, one thing that I would want from the group here is with some of these things, I don't know how much they cost. I mean, we have rough cost estimates for what some of these things are, because I think that'll definitely help shape where we go. I think, if we have something that costs $2 million, is that a place we want to go, or should it simply be eliminated from consideration?
Or also like what you said on like LA or some of the bigger cities might have something already done. So sort of piggyback on some of that stuff, maybe. So it won't be a learning curve. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some people that have been in meetings with me have been heard talking about transportation happiness and parking happiness and not a lot, but I think it's a way of measuring it differently. So it's not just measuring by like, okay, we have a bike share program now, check. The next thing we need to do scooters, check. Then we need to do this, check. If it doesn't lead to the happiness of the people and the quality of life that we actually want, it's just a waste of time and money. And so I think there's a lot of interesting work that has already been done and that we can look into for sure.
I think one thing you want to think about is reviewers, how sexy or interesting is your project? So just to pick on an EV charging station, everybody and his brother will put forward an EV charging station. If you got some sort of software that works across various modal platforms within a geographic area, that might catch the attention of a reviewer more than, oh, look, another bank of EV charging stations.
Exactly. Well, unless it's part of a strategy, right? Like,
Well, yeah, but I mean,
If we put forward 1.2 million worth of projects, we would get all of them, right? Because
we should.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was
So
wondering.
ideally, like if we did want to do EV charging, which I think because of what Toby said about so many other funding sources for that, it doesn't strike me as a high priority for this budget. But like, if that was what we wanted to do, I think we could. And if that was all we put forward, like, I think we would get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then looking at the types of projects, depending on how this application process goes, we might not have the time to prepare an innovative solution. So EV charging stations and bus stops,
right,
dead simple,
Mm-hmm.
and they can be phased in over those 5 years. As much money as we have this year, we'll do that many bus stops, that many EV stations, whatever.
Well, that might be, I guess that's a great point. And I think it's depending upon VODA. I'm kind of assuming they're going to have to do multiple application processes. I don't think they want to do an annual process because funding is simply not that great.
Right.
But maybe they'll do two, application cycles for these funds. Maybe it makes sense for us to have something that's easy, upfront, it's 2, 3, 400,000. And then the second cycle, we organize a bigger, like an innovation kind of idea.
Yeah, and I mean, two things. Transit app, which you're using, is doing a similar project like this in Pittsburgh right now. The first mobility as a service project. So I think they already have the foundation, an easy call to identify if this would be something that we can build. Two, it's really funny for me to be so hesitant about like EV charging because like I'm pushing it so much, but I'm doing that because I think it's more regulatory need than capital need. Because there's a big private industry that we could have whatever we want probably by next year if we can get the regulatory work done. Because there are private businesses that are investing in this. There's car manufacturers that want to do public-private partnerships. So there are so many other funding sources, right? But we can't use them yet because we can't just say, hey, we want like 100 charging stations in our right of way. Because how do we procure that? How do we do that even if we don't pay for it? So I think there's two elements to that.
And the private market is providing charging, which is a key difference for charging compared to
Yeah.
other projects.
And then willing to pay the money for it too.
Well, and I hate to, burst the bubble? Is that what you said before?
Sometimes.
EV charging stations are great, and the car that uses that power doesn't emit pollutants into the air. But the single occupant driver who's driving it is still using a parking space. They're still creating traffic volume. It's not the end all, gift of, impact-free transportation that.
Somewhat related on that score is you get, one of the scoring sheet criteria was the Justice 40 or what's that?
Yes.
So, equity value in EV charging stations for $80,000 cars,
Yeah.
right?
One of my favorite bumper stickers. This vehicle only kills salmon.
What is it?
This vehicle only kills salmon.
Right, right. There's that. And then there's just manufacturing those vehicles. If you've got a car that still has.
Electricity that's generated in some way.
Of course, exactly. That's killing salmon. Yeah, no, in round here.
It's just have to be thoughtful in where we place them so that they do benefit
Of course,
less communities.
of course. Yeah. But
County's
no,
landfill, so.
Yeah.
I just think EV's off of here for all of those reasons.
Oh.
There, the list just got shorter. Easy.
I'm comfortable, like Toby, because Toby and I are kind of like leading the EV readiness work, and I'm comfortable not really considering EV charging I don't say I agree with all those reasons, but specifically that there is a lot of other funding options for it and other mechanisms.
Yes. And enthusiasm and support and, all of that is happening for EVs right now. Charging, they don't need us pushing on this, in my humble opinion. Yeah. Okay, that one's out.
Right.
And then I don't mean to self-serve here, but but I will. Janet was talking about getting people's behavior to change and
Right.
all of these things we can build. And then if people are still driving SOV, it doesn't move the needle at all. So in any of these projects, there needs to be some kind of incentive for the person to try the thing, to try the new crosswalk, to try the bus stop, to, give it. People love prizes. I mean, I know it's really cheesy.
No, it's true.
They totally will do stuff out of their comfort zone to win something.
Just a single, yeah. No, it's
A hydro flask. I mean,
But I would
it's
play
amazing.
devil's advocate for just a minute. I think like transit, the vast majority of our transit stops. There's nothing, there may be a small bench there and that's it. And so you can incentivize somebody to go there, but it's standing next
The
to
experience.
street. It's
Yeah.
a very undignified
Yeah.
sort of thing. Be standing there for 20, where you're waiting for the bus.
Right, looking down the street.
Exactly.
And I don't know if
Versus-
those dollars could be used for that, because when I was looking into incentives for like our advisory committee, if we could do some sort of stipends, I was told that they should be, we can't do that with federal dollars.
Yeah, so that's,
We might
There-
be able to rig it as a community outreach event
yeah,
and then the
You can
prizes
do
are
it
paid
in
for by us.
some other way.
Right.
Salary.
the 10.27 maybe is.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, I think there's definitely a place for some infrastructure. I think infrastructure could be a part of, at least should be a consideration here, because I think you can incentivize people, but if you don't have good bus stops, you don't have decent sidewalks, then I'm not gonna, the average person is not going to.
Or sustain the behavior.
Yeah.
Right.
Most recent survey showed that's what folks want, is that spot out of the rain, a place to sit. Didn't that rank even higher than lead times?
Well, and that's something we're working on now, just for background. I'm working on an RFP on bus shelters. It is all Buy America compliant. So federal money is good. We could just use it for bus stop improvements. Change the pad, different type of
Data.
shelter. Or it could
Yeah.
be used for like amenities at the shelter, because we're just getting dumb shelters right now. If you want
Yeah.
solar lighting, or a solar phone charging station, or those,
The thing that tells you when the bus is coming.
there's a lot of bells and whistles that we can upgrade if we had a little bit extra.
Yeah, I think that's definitely needed, like, because it's like I talked about this, like, I live in the DIW too. And so when I drive home from school, I drive down Brookswood, right? Like, and I ask my kids like randomly, like, would you take the bus? I don't want to stand next to that bucket, right? So that is true. Would I pay $150 a month for like a subscription-based service where I know my kids could go where they want, when they need to in a bus? Sure, I would. And so I think that improving that, I think is important. And I think when we talked about this with what are the amenities that are needed at each shelter, right? And now it's not just a bike rack anymore either. It's also a LEV charging for bikes, and those can be solar powered. So I think, yeah, there's a lot that we can probably ideate about that too, so.
Can we use it for more frequent buses? Operations side.
If you can find drivers to drive them, sure.
Autonomous?
Good luck with that.
I don't see any objection there. Yeah, but drivers are hold back right now on that.
Yeah, and I'd have to
Can you
look
exchange dollars for it to be FHWA fund?
potentially.
Yeah.
So like a shuttle, more like the
Maybe.
ride style.
Yeah,
shuttle.
it's,
Plus the funding would run out
It's
then. though. So if it was like, if it's mainly paying drivers, then while you have the money, you can do it, but then it's not
Yeah.
to sustain that, yeah.
I think that kind of longer term sustainability should be an important part of this.
Yeah.
On that note, van pool funding can be used to buy down the cost of a van, which is basically extends the route and time of transit, right? So there's a van pool that leaves Redmond at 5 o'clock in the morning and takes people to work in Sisters. CET will never be running a bus. I'll take words out of your mouth. At 5 a.m. from Redmond to Sisters, but these 5 people are now not driving their single occupant vehicle to and from work, and it's being subsidized by Cascade East Transit. So it basically extends the reach of transit at a time and in a place that probably a fixed route would never work and never pencil. So I don't know if, I mean, it's not on there, but that's another really neat turnkey solution for employers and employees.
And would the funding purchase the vans themselves?
You lease them.
Okay.
I think you could buy them, but the lease is really the sweet deal because it includes maintenance, insurance, and roadside assistance. And it's a month-to-month arrangement, so it can be canceled. If it's not working.
Yep.
Which bus routes are harder to
Exactly.
pull the plug on. Yeah. Oh, and they're volunteer drivers, so you don't have to have a CDL or be paid. Wow. No subsidies are available right now, today. Call me up. Give you some info.
is there anything else on this list that you want to eliminate? Hobie is, dynamically eliminating things. So are there?
I've been making some stuff here.
I would throw, I don't want to eliminate it, but for the sake of our discussion today, I think I maybe a friendly amendment and maybe say like the bike ped facilities, ped implementation plan projects, those are big money. Most of them are costly. So if there was some, maybe reword that, and the bridge projects, right? That's 1.2 is not even enough to do most of those. So maybe we reword that to micro mobility and intermodal connection projects. So if there's some
Mobility hub,
some little mobility hub type connection, that would be a great focus for this instead of trying to build a missing sidewalk link from them. And then safe routes to school, I still think that's a great way to kind of leverage if we have some funding that we could figure out how to integrate that again with all the rest, not just necessarily a safe routes to school, but integrate. So I'd advocate for a check that box.
And IIJA has put a bunch of new money into the safe routes work here in Oregon already. So those things could definitely go together.
could permanent count stations be an aspect?
You ask feebly, like, anybody, we gotta count this stuff.
We gotta count them, we gotta be able to like monitor them.
I think if we put it in with the electronic wayfinding to have counting bikes, a new facility
Yeah.
with a bike
Walk
facility
bike, yep.
and have that part of it. And that could be, I don't know where I put it.
Just put it data collection and technology. Cause I just heard about the Path View little dog stroller machine that you can push on the sidewalk and it takes pictures every 10 feet and you can measure and get the sidewalk condition.
Yeah, and that Redis integration, and then the, AVL reporting.
Speaking of sidewalks, how about the winter road clearance?
Yep. You
Snow
were
removal?
looking at me because that's exactly what I was thinking is I was super excited thinking that with other MPO funding, we might be able to purchase a machine to actually get snow out of bike lanes and sidewalks.
So you can walk.
And then I talked to David Abbas, who said he thinks we need 6 of those, I'm like, oh, I was so excited. I'm like,
How much do those cost?
What's that?
How much do those cost?
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe $250,000 by the time you start adding the attachments. It's it's all in the attachment.
Then you need the person.
Of course.
Drive it.
Well, we figured that out. No, David really has. He's done a good job with that, making like our snowplow drivers full-time employees. They just immediately switched to getting senders off the road from snow, instead of trying to have seasonal employees. So yes, that is always, you're right. It's not just drivers, it's employees in, all around. Yeah.
So in the interest of trying to cut things, you talked about how expensive ride Bend service was. Would you just like yank that off the list? Because you're not going to get much for money available.
Maybe the service, but I think we could have a bigger idea of mobile business service type platform app,
Yeah, I mean, you start with the technology.
Yeah, so stick with the technology, with the service.
I don't think that we would have enough funding to fund the service. That needs to be a different route. And I think that goes really, long-term thinking, that goes really into, how do I say this right way? I think it's a great learning experience to say that you can't build a service like that with the intention of subsidizing it forever. Because once the funding runs out, the service will go away.
Right.
So you need to build it in a way that it can generate revenue so it can pay for itself. And so I think we're looking at $1.2 to $1.8 million to operate for a year in a couple of different phases, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, sounds
and
right.
Casey can correct me if he's still on here. So I don't think we need the service on here, but the ride band or whatever we would call it as a mobility as a service app that everybody who comes in, whether public or private, can actually integrate with. That's what we're talking about. And I think that would be a valuable project. And I think we were never in a better position, especially because of the CET work, for multiple reasons. One, all those players talk to each other much more right now than they have ever had, which is great.
Yeah.
2, CET has now the technology that's needed to implement that. And so I think, and we have other services that we didn't have before. So I think it is interesting to consider, but not as a service. I would agree.
Do any bridge projects for?
I think you can't even look at a bridge project for $2 million. So.
Yeah.
Even the one with the river, even the Columbia, right?
Yeah, I had intended to take that off.
That Columbia, yeah, so maybe we could do that. But yeah, that's the kind of
It
bridge.
could be for like the Columbia, replacement of the Columbia Bridge, but the design.
Columbia River crossing for what? Oh.
But that project's gonna be. We're gonna use exchange funding for, for that ped bridge design.
Yes.
Yeah, we
So
figured
that
out the
one's gonna be,
design.
that replacement of the Columbia Park Bridge is gonna be, we're gonna fund the design of that, but we're gonna use state funds, which then, the Go Across Bridge, and so.
Did you apply for community path money for that?
Not that one, but we're gonna use some of our discretionary funding for that. So I mean, you run into the problem of we're gonna use state funds to do the planning and design work, which then makes it, you'd almost have to step back and the whole thing would be federal from beginning to end.
Right.
So.
You already thought of that. Okay.
Yeah, it intended to take that off here this morning, just forgot, so.
Who made up these rules?
Is Janet still on?
No,
Thanks, guys.
Lost
Or
her.
figure out who the Speaker of the House is.
Yeah. Because I'm just wondering, I'm wondering up top, like on technology, if traffic signal type stuff should be eliminated here potentially. Just because of cost, you know, I think.
$250,000 by themselves.
And does that really move? Does that?
We're looking at the signal prioritization for buses, but I think that's already in the works, so I don't have.
Yeah, I mean, there's parts to it that could be, it's just more of it.
Greenhouse gases.
That's true, but how do you measure that one?
Yeah.
Through the same math that you use.
Assertion.
No. Occupant vehicle drivers don't use my stuff.
Yeah, but you can.
They're not in the club.
You can measure travel time, travel times.
Yeah, I mean, I think like say these two out here on Franklin, they're exceedingly inefficient, you know, there's a tremendous amount.
Stop and go.
Let's delay.
Yeah.
Because the signals are so old, the city can do very little.
But how much does a traffic signal cost, folks?
Well,
I think
you're not replacing the signal.
Yeah.
You're,
Optimize.
I have been.
you're connecting it to your hub and optimizing your timing, or your timing's then adaptive and stuff. So
Well, is that
Yeah.
cheap or is that expensive?
relatively, it's I mean, it depends on the site. The answer as an engineer, it's always, it depends, right? But
Given we got to dig.
But on there, I could talk to both Janet and Dave Hirsch at ODOT, because there's a lot happening already on that side with some existing projects.
Yeah.
And if there's a few small pieces, you know, they're still outstanding, if our technology plan, maybe that would still make sense.
Oh, we put a yellow X on there.
I don't know if I can change color. Here. There you go.
the project on Colorado and Arizona is gonna get started, implemented shortly, and then we should have some decent results in 6-7 months or so. So, you know, we can say what the benefits are, but that whole TSP stuff, I mean, that's, you know, there's multiple ways to do that now. It's not always with this, you know, the signal, you know, it's not always hardware. That's the stuff the TriMet did on Division Street was somewhat different in terms of technology. So GPS based.
All right, time check. So I'm gonna get us to the
All
next
right.
slide unless there's
Yeah.
one more.
No, I think we have a pretty good idea of
Okay.
what to move forward on.
What do we want to do next? Are we going to have
Yeah.
another meeting in January?
Nope. I'm gonna get rid of all my stuff. Hold on. Let me go back really
Yeah, they
quick.
just carried.
I'm gonna take a picture of that.
Oh, bummer. That's weird.
Oh, it's all over just your screen. I get it.
Yeah, okay.
That's okay. We can pay attention for 4 more minutes. Check mark.
Outlines. There we go. We're good. There we go. Got it.
All right,
Okay.
so I think in the application or in the invitation, the calendar invitation, I sent you the draft application. It's 2 pages of, you know, outlining. That should be the final version of that should be available in the next week or 2. And then I think our next step is staff. We will kind of look through our notes from today, send out a revised or a condensed list of potential projects. And I think it's probably gonna be worth us meeting one more time.
I think so. Yeah.
To kind of walk through that, 'cause we'll have a list of potential projects and programs, and then hopefully have some least cost range estimates for them, and then we can have a discussion on next steps. That makes sense. We can,
Did I hear you say that you are going to create the spreadsheet that Cassie was talking about earlier that has like the project and then how much money? And then comments like, is there other
Yeah.
funding of rights?
yeah,
We'll have that in advance.
yes.
We'll all think about that, and we will
we can
get
come
together
together.
and we'll discuss that actual list at the next meeting.
Yes.
I agree. If that's what you
That would-
said, I
yeah.
agree.
I'm hoping
Yeah,
we can do that in a
creating a
very
matrix.
simple-
It's like, that's what you said.
Right, yeah, there you
Maybe add projects to it if you guys
Yes.
create like a structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people can
You can,
respond.
give
Exactly.
everybody a few days at least to review it, react to it, modify it, and then we can come back together and talk about. Does that sound like a good plan?
It does.
So we could do a meeting the last week in January, or we could unfold this into our TAC meeting on February 1st.
Yeah, I think let's try and shoot for kind of late January, and I'm hoping
Okay.
between, in the next 2 weeks, ODOT will be pushing out a little
Give
bit
us
more
some
information in terms of, are they gonna hold to that February application, process starting, project minimum, the stacking potential, all up front, that type of.
Right,
We'll
yeah.
have a little more info on, the true details of what's gonna make this work or not work for us.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Thanks,
Great.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for coordinating.
Thank you, TAC committee. I never see you, but I appreciate you. I am serious. Oh.
All right. Thanks, everyone.